Okay, good morning, direct from North Miami Beach. I woke up early this morning. Okay, my name is Rennie Stein. Of course, if you're part of this show, you know that. And thank Rabbi Smith for asking someone to volunteer for this year, and no one volunteered. Give me this list to try and get a mitzvah and wake up earlier. Uh, Happy upcoming Shabbos and Hanukkah to everybody. And what else? We thank Hashem for the letting us learn Torah, Refuah Shleimah to all the people who need Refuah Shleimahs, and
Mashiach now.
Mashiach now. Okay, let's go. We're up to Pei Zion Amud Beis. That's 87b, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines from the top. It's kind of a new sugya, I guess. All right. This is all about airspace. And it's interesting. Just a few weeks ago, I went to Eretz Yisrael with our buddy Jay Berger. Most of you know him. And Jay owns an apartment on the fourth floor in Ramat Bet Shemesh Aleph. And he rents that. But their apartment came with kind of a giant space on the roof. And he bought the airspace of that fourth floor. And he ended up putting up an one-bedroom apartment on the roof with a beautiful view and an area for a sukkah. So it's interesting. I came from airspace and I'm coming to airspace. Okay. Other mizbeach, k'mizbeach dami olo. So the question is the airspace of the altar considered like the altar or not? I'm reading from the Art Scroll. Thus, if one is suspended invalid offering parts in the airspace above the altar, may they remain or be burned on the pyre, or must they be taken down? Okay, I believe we learned earlier that something that's not allowed on the altar. Well, ain't all in below Jordan, you can't take it down. But this was all a few days ago when I wasn't here. But something like questioning about what if something is on top of the altar that's invalid. Anyway, right now we just want to know, what about the airspace? What if a helicopter, the Beis Hamikdash is here. Mashiach came yesterday. Beis Hamikdash is here, and the Israeli Air Force is flying overhead, like, because they protect everything. And they normally don't fly over the Beis Hamikdash, but in this case, there's a very firm guy, and he's hanging from his helicopter, a shtickle korban that they just made. I don't know, the Cohen was too lazy to walk up the ramp, and it's just flying over the airspace. So now this piece of meat is on the airspace of the mizbeach. All right. So the question is that airspace considered as if it's on the mizbeach, or no? It's just in the airspace. Okay. So again, understanding that was easy coming from Eretz Yisrael and living in an airspace bought apartment. So that's the question.
I think they mentioned yesterday that Mizbeach acquires. So I guess here is whether the airspace acquires also.
Okay, so Hillel says here that he believes yesterday it was mentioned that the Mizbeach acquires what?
So, there was three items that they mentioned. It was like the Mizbeach, the vessel, and
The kevis, the ramp?
the ramp was
Okay,
third.
yeah, so that's what we're going to get into. All right. Tashma, come and learn the proof from our previous Mishnah, which Hillel probably just was trying to quote. Kishem Shamikdash Mekadesh, just as the altar sacrifices that which is fit for it, all right? Kach Kebesh Mekadesh, so does the ramp sanctify. So let's say this Kohen, he only got halfway up the ramp. It's long. It's what, 30 amas or something like that? And then he puts the korban down, or the shtickle of flesh, the piece of meat, which he was supposed to bring up to the mizbeach, to the altar. And but he got tired halfway and he put it down. So the ramp also is Mekadesh, makes it holy. Thus, once invalid offering parts were placed on the ramp, they should be transferred from there to the top of the altar for burning. Vimamot Avim is all right. So he's saying that if you have invalid offering part, I'm not sure why it's invalid. I guess because it fell off the first time or something like that, and he's schlepping it back. Or somebody, Moshe, if you know, help me. But anyway, he still should, once it's on the ramp, it became Kaddish, and therefore he should keep on transferring it to the Mizbeach to burn it there in the appropriate place. V'mamot other Mizbeach love Mizbeach dummy. Now, if you say that the airspace of the altar is not considered like the altar itself, over Kevesh Nami love Kevesh dummy. So maybe you're going to say that the airspace of the ramp is also not considered like the ramp itself. I guess that means if he's carrying it, the Kohen above the airspace, it's not Kaddish. Or if the helicopter hasn't reached the Mizbeach yet and he's coming via the route of the Mizbeach, at that point it's not holy yet. Hechi masik le mikevesh leMizbeach. So how can one bring an invalid offering part up from the ramp to the altar? Okay, so here's the question. If somebody wants to bring something that's invalid up to the altar uh, to make it valid, I guess, all right? And he's on the kevis, but he's carrying it. So it's still in the airspace of the kevis. This is how we're understanding at the moment. And he's got to get up to the Mizbeach, to the altar. Havile Yared. Once it is lifted from the ramp, now it's as if he removed it from the ramp. And there's a rule that an invalid part that was removed from the altar or the kevish or the ramp can't be placed on back again. All right. Okay, that was from learned previously. So maybe the airspace is like the altar itself. That's why we're asking the question. Because if the airspace of the kevesh is like the altar itself, is still holy, then the Kohen's lifting it to carry it all the way up to the altar would still be kodesh. Good morning. The Gemara rejects this proofs. The no good lay. The Kohen drags it from the ramp onto the altar without lifting it. So he says, all right, let me read what it says here. There was normally a requirement to throw the offering parts from the ramp to the altar. Yeah, we've learned that before, and then some of these things are way far throw. However, this requirement was waived in the case of invalid offering parts that had been sanctified by the ramp, since if they were to be lifted, the requirement to burn them could not be fulfilled. Okay, that's interesting. So he put it on the ramp. The ramp made it holy. All right. Now, if he were to lift it from the ramp to carry it all the way up, he would invalidate the holiness it had achieved. All right, in order to bring it now we have a new problem again. It was invalid. It became holy. Now it's unholy. How does he get it up to the ramp? All right. I mean, up the ramp to the Mizbech. V'ha'avir yesh ben kevesh leMizbech. All right. And now, if you remember, when we were learning about how the Mizbech was built, 30 by 30, and it came down, they had a little kind of what you call it, footers going around it, continuously. And then the kevish, the ramp that came up, didn't really hit totally the Mizbeach. There was an airspace, all right? So that means that if you're going from the kevish, whether it's got the airspace is good or not, to the Mizbeach, whether or not the airspace is good or not, all right, you're going over an airspace that's not good at all. So if the kevish made something holy again, and now you're you're carrying it up to the Mizbeach, the moment you go over, this is the question, the moment you go over the airspace, even though it's a small gap, it's going to invalidate it. So we do have this problem because of the gap. If he schlepped it all the way up from the holy kedesh, that the kedesh that made it holy, that was mekadesh it, right onto the mizbech, and there were no airspace, that would be fine because you're going just continue. They're continuous, one next to the other, continuous, whatever the word is. Okay, but they're not here. There's a gap here. It's like someone who's got a gap between their front teeth. You look at them, they're smiling, and no matter what, you always notice the gap. The gap is there. All right, the gap isn't just a store. It's a gap. Oh, you have a gap. I never even realized. I take it back. You don't always realize it. So my friend here has always had a gap, and I've never noticed it. That's funny. I guess some people have bigger gaps. Anyway, so here we have the question of the gap. For other yesh, I'm sorry, that's funny. For other yesh bein kevesh lemizbech. All right. So the question is, what about the gap? So the Gemara answers, rubo lechevesh kechevesh. All right. As long as the majority of the offering part is on the ramp, it's considered as what's the rubo kekulo dummy? All right, I think that's the expression. The majority is as if it's the whole thing. So if if the Kohen is schlepping this piece of meat up the ramp, and he now has 1/4 of it over the gap onto the mizbeach, but 3/4 is still on the kadesh, on the ramp. It's still kosher, even though you went over the space. Why? Because the majority is still on the ramp. And as you get to 3/4 or 2/3 or hit 50% plus onto the ramp, onto the Mizbeach, now the Mizbeach has made it holy. So you can just schlep the rest. But what happens at that second where it's 50-50 and you're right over the space, all right? You can't use this rule, all right? So let's just say, Tifshet meha hadavai Rami Bachama. So Rabbi Bachama says, resolves, wait, let's just stop there for a second. So the answer would be, you'd say, well, you know what? The altar makes it holy, the ramp makes it holy. So between the two, we have 50 and 50. That's 100%. It's like, partners in their entirety. All right. Yesh chibur l'olin olo. So Rami Bar Chama now asks, is there a concept of attachment in regard to things that go up on the altar or not? That is, if the greater part of something is on the altar, do we consider the remainder which is attached to it as also being on the altar or not? This is what we just explained. He's questioning. Let it be resolved that it is a concept of attachment. For if not, each successive part of the limb that reaches the gap should be considered detached from the greater portion that is still on the ramp and should be deemed to have come off the altar. Okay, in other words, when you look at a piece of meat, you look at the piece of meat. You're buying a 50-ounce steak or whatever it is. You want, I don't know, steaks. Is that all right? You want the whole steak. Or do you look at it as this is, what's that term they use for steak that's really a hamburger?
Steak burger?
No, no, no. The meat for a hamburger is also called steak. It's called, come on. I'm mostly vegetarian.
Well,
Except for Shabbos? What Salisbury, and occasionally to a good restaurant.
For how long?
Yeah, as long as I can be during the week. What is Salisbury steak? Is that burger?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. But when you buy it, you're buying pieces of meat, right? That came through the blender.
That's
so
questionable.
When you look at the meat, are you seeing pieces of meat or are you seeing one big stick of meat? All right. So the point is, if we're dealing with one big shtick, that's what the question is here. So the Gemara responds, "Hello, Kasha. It's no question, no difficulty. Tifshit. Let Rabbi Bar Chama's inquiry be resolved." The Gemara resumes its discussion of the original inquiry. Hold on a second. Right. I just lost it. I started with Muskif. No, or that's what I'm up to. Muskif Lo Rababa. Yeah, Tifshit. All right. So let Rami Bar Chama's inquiry be resolved. So let's discuss the original inquiry. Maskif la Rabba Bar Chana. Rabba Bar Rav Chanan. So Rabba Bar Rav Chanan objected to this whole question for obvious reasons, which you will see, I guess. If you say that the airspace of the altar is like the altar itself, how will you find a case where bird ola is invalidated through intent, I guess that's pigul, to burn it upon the altar beyond its time? Is it pigul? All right, so here's the question. There's a Kohen. He wants to do, what's it called with his nail? Malika. He wants to do it to this bird, which he's holding his underhand in a kind of crazy way. All right? And he's standing on top of the Mizbeach. So he's standing on top of the Mizbeach. If we say that the airspace on top of the Mizbeach is okay, then he does Malika, but he has in mind to either tomorrow, whatever is Pigel, right? It doesn't even match. He can't do that because it's his intent is he's going to spritz the blood of the bird tomorrow or whatever, or get down, do it. He's up there. If the bird is already up on him, wait. First, the question would be, we're thinking it out. He's in the airspace, so it should be kosher. And if it's kosher, then how can the people can't apply because the bird is already here. Don't tell me you thought about the bird somewhere else. You did the this shchita, in this case malika, on top of the korban. You didn't do it somewhere else. You're already there. Are you already there? You're there. I mean, you already took the 600 bus, right? And then you took the air rail. You're there. All right. That's things I had to take in Yerushalayim. I learned for the first time how to get to the coast. And then you take the number one bus back because it's faster.
That's because you're in RBS.
Yeah.
If you were in Jerusalem, you wouldn't have to.
I was what?
If you were in Jerusalem, you just walk.
Yeah, I know, but you don't invite me when you go to Yerushalayim. All right. The Amaris. Of him is back, that way we said the Allah to pass. All right, so the whole question is, hey David, how do you make it puzzle? Haklata Mizbeach, since the Malik of this offering is performed on top, I think it's giving the answer I just said, on top of the Mizbeach, on the altar, it's on top of it, the airspace of the altar has accepted it. Insofar as it is kept there overnight, it may be burned the following morning. And since it may be burned the following morning, the intent to burn it then would not invalidate the offering. Again, this is explaining the pigul machshava, all right? It was pigul of time. The Gemara responds, Masrif la Rav Shimi bar Ashi, all right? So what do you say? Alam alo. Why not? You can certainly find this invalidation with regard to a bird orla offering. Kigandamar, it is applicable in a case where one said, Hareini moka amanas larida lamacha laosa laktira. So look, he's kind of presenting case. What if he said, I'm performing this malika, this is the Kohen on top of the Mizbeach, with intent to remove the bird, so that's pigul, from the altar tomorrow, and then I'm going to bring it back up and burn it. Since the bird would be unfit for burning on the altar once it was removed, because that's kind of a rule. If you remove it from it, becomes unfit. This intent invalidates the offering. Right, the intent to burn the next day can thus affect pigul. That's the question. So the Gemara analyzes Rav Shimi bar Ashi's argument. This fits well according to Rabbi, who said that being kept overnight is effective in invalidating something that was kept on top of the altar. According to his opinion, the bird would indeed be unfit for burning on the altar once it was removed in the morning, and the pigul intent would therefore be effective. But according to Rabbah, who said that being kept overnight is ineffective in invalidating things that are kept on the top of the altar. Why? Because it's already been there. Leis l'machshavto, the Kohen's intent is worthless. In other words, the pigel isn't pigel. It ain't worth the dime. It cannot render the offering pigel, since even if it was fulfilled, the offering would be fit for burning on the altar in the morning. Right. If you just left it there, it's still going to be good for the morning. The Gemara responds, "La Rabba nami mashkachasla." According to Rabba, you can also find this invalidation to be applicable. In a case where one said, I'm performing Malika, this is the Kohen on top of the altar, with intent to remove the bird from the altar before dawn, and to bring it back up to the altar after dawn and burn it, the intent affects Pigel, because if it were fulfilled, the offering would become invalidated at dawn, when it is on the ground and not on the altar. It would not be fit for returning to the altar. Boys, they're going back and forth on this discussion, or trying to understand the answer. Having rejected Rabbi Bar Rav Chanan's proof that the airspace above the altar is not considered like the altar itself. Okay, so up until now, we said the airspace is good. Now, yes.
Where's the airspace located?
On top of anything. The airspace on top of the altar is airspace on top of the altar. Yeah. Okay. That's the definition of airspace. Rav Shimi Barashi offers a counterproof that the airspace is indeed considered like the altar itself. Lahach gisa miha tifshus. You got? Airspace, by definition, is that space that's above something.
That's the gaps.
Okay, I'm going to just continue. Rather, on the basis of the following argument, let the inquiry be resolved in favor of this side. That the airspace of the altar is considered. Mazel tov again. Yes, tonight. What time is the wedding?
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah.
No. That's insulting.
It's earlier. I think 4:30.
That's insulting.
No, there's 3 times.
That's insulting.
You know the answer?
Yes, but I'm not going to.
Because you don't know the answer. You don't remember.
4:30.
Right, 4:30. And what's the test question?
4:30.
I told you it's 3 times. 4:30 is the Hachnas color, no, whatever it's called. The women go there and we go to the guy. 5:30 is chuppah and 6:30 is. Okay, you got it. Okay. Watch if I ask him, would you take me up there so I don't have to drive my Jeep? His answer is no, because I don't know when I'm coming back. No, because I'm going with my wife. No, because
I'm going with my wife.
See, I know these answers right. All right, let's get back to the Gemara. Rather, on the basis of following argument, let the inquiry be resolved in favor of this side. The other, whoops, where did it just go? Read me the last few lines.
Oh.
Wait, I'll get it in a second. Okay. Avir Mizbeach Lav Mizbeach Dummy, that the altar, good morning, Professor, that the airspace of the altar is not considered like the altar. Okay, up until now, we want to invalidate this whole Pigol Maisa, because we were saying the airspace is valid, and then so it's good, and then they're arguing, what if you take it off? Well, that doesn't think you're going to take it off. That doesn't apply. And then we said, no, but since the Kohen's here. So now we're going to give, I think, a twist. I think now we're going to say, but the Kohen is standing up there, and he's holding the bird while he does the Malika. So he's there. The Malika was done in the hand of the Kohen, who's on, this bone is attached to the other bone. I'm not going to get into that song, all right? But, so the Malika, the bird is attached to the hand of the Kohen's hand is attached to the Kohen's feet are attached to the Mizbeach. Therefore, we don't even have to ask about Mizbeach. I think that's a question. And if not, somewhere there's someone asked that question. Maybe Rashi. How may one sprinkle the blood of an invalid bird chatas that was brought on the altar? All right. So this is another question. After you do, let's say you do chatas ha'of, all right? A bird chatas, all right? And chatas, all right? So afterwards, the chatas requires you to sprinkle. Remember that thing? There's the squeezing of the blood, and then there's the sprinkling of the blood. But in order to sprinkle the blood, that's throwing the blood. All right. Well, how can you throw the blood if you're on top of the altar? You throw the blood from down below. So if you're putting it on the altar and kind of just squeezing it down or pushing the blood, then you're ending up not doing sprinkling. You're doing which had another word which I don't remember what.
Like when you pour at the bottom.
Not to point out, there's two things. I forget the names. They'll come up. One is the spritzing, and the other is when they squeeze the blood and like do the marking. All right, and I forget the names, but we'll come to it. All right. So how may one sprinkle the blood in the altar of an invalid bread? Havalei yarut, since the coin must lift the offering from the altar proper in order to sprinkle its blood. It's considered to have been removed from the altar. It's no longer fit for sprinkling. Likewise, how may one throw blood from other invalid offerings that were brought up the altar? Since the Kohen must lift the basin of blood in order to throw it, it should be considered as if it was removed from the altar. The Gemara rejects these proofs. What are you talking about? It says, the Magalahu, in these questions, the Kohen keeps the bird chatas, or the basin of blood, in contact with the wall of the altar as he sprinkles the blood to throw the blood. So it says in the commentary here, that is, he does not sprinkle or throw it from a distance so as not to disqualify it, but lowers it along the altar wall and applies it without allowing it to lose contact.
Smearing.
What?
He's smearing it.
That's what sounded. That was my question. We learned from here that it is not only the top of the altar, but even the wall of the altar that has the capacity to sanctify invalid offerings. It's the third part now. So the altar can do it. This is not talking about the airspace. The kevesh can do it, and now he says the side. Right. Says, if you don't follow all of this, that's okay, because I'm giving the share. Number one, two, that's what Chazar is about. Just relearn it for yourself afterwards. Concerning the disqualified bird chatas, is this method of blood application an act of sprinkling? So that was the question I just said. And as the professor said, wait a minute, he's smearing it. Smearing is not sprinkling. If you order a bagel with a schmear, you're ordering bagel with a nice amount of cream cheese, not a sprinkle of some cream cheese. Low. Mitzvah, it is an act of draining, since it is done while holding the bird against the altar wall. Hasrika, what about zrika concerning that? Is this method of blood application an act of throwing? Again, same question. Low. No, shvicha, it's an act of pouring. You take that, what you call it, the bird, and you're squeezing it, you're pouring the blood out. So you kind of turn it up. Well,
Birds don't have much blood.
whatever it is, but it's pouring it.
Sure.
All right. If you have a eyedropper that has 0.1 cc's of medicine in it, you're still pouring it out of it. So pouring is the act of taking liquid from one place to another. Gotcha. Okay, no questions. No questions. I don't.
Oh,
All right, go ahead.
What are these verbs here? What is the difference between sprinkling and draining and?
Okay, all right. There's actions we learned previously in the Gemara that after the shechita was done, that the Kohen has with a bird, he has to take the bird, sprinkle, squeeze it against the wall, and smear blood there. This was previously learned. There's also an act where they take the blood from that's in the bowl of the sacrifice and spritz it onto the other corner. So that's the spritzing. And the other thing is squeezing, where you actually no. So that's it. One is Rika. Rika is the spritzing. The other one is where you squeeze it. But mitzvah is drained. You got it. Okay. How's Rika? And concerning invalid animal offerings, is this method of blood application an act of throwing. No, shvichahi. It's an act of pouring. Since it's done, it is done as the basin touches the animal wall, the ud. Moreover, if you will contend that these are not considered acts of draining or pouring, derech hazah b'chaf, is this spraying while holding the bird against the altar? Now we're saying what you just told me is an answer doesn't work because it doesn't match what we're supposed to do. So a normal matter of sprinkling, is it? Derech zrika b'chaf. Is this pouring the blood from basin that's touching the altar a normal manner of throwing? No. The Kohen must lift the blood off the altar in order to sprinkle it or throw it properly. You're always trying to hit the corners, all right? Do not try this at home. All right, it's not valid. The Kohen must lift the blood off the altar in order to sprinkle or throw it properly. Clearly, then, the airspace above the altar is considered like the altar. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, now we're getting back to the airspace question. All right. Rav Ashi, the Gemara answers, Rav Ashi says, if one was holding the sacrificial substance, in this case is, let's say it's the bird, while standing on top of the altar, because that was the case, that's where the Kohen did the Malika, these substances would indeed be sanctified by the altar, even though they're not touching its surface. All right, and again, we said the bird is in the hand is in the body is in the legs, the legs bones connected to the altar. Therefore, everything, I am not playing the song, Drago, okay? Therefore, stop, it's going to ring in my head all day, all right? So therefore it's okay. Since the Kohen's body is resting on the altar, regard anything is holding is resting on it. Kikama ditlanhu bekanya. All right. However, when the inquiry concerning the airspace above the altar was stated, it was in reference to a case where someone standing on the ground suspends sacrificial substances above the altar with the stick. That's kind of what he originally said with the helicopter driving. But let's imagine the Kohen, in his spare time, he goes to Yam HaMelach fishing, never catches his one fish at the Dead Sea. Yeah, he has no luck with catching fish. He doesn't even need a floating ball. All right, the hook will never go down. He's just being low. So he says, you know what? I'm going to try here. I'm going to take my fishing rod with the hook. Yeah. I'm going to pick up this piece of meat and I'm going to reach it way on top of the altar so I don't have to walk up. And now it's above the airspace. Yeah. Is that meat now kosher in the airspace? Right? That's what he's saying. What is the law in this case? Is the airspace above the altar considered like the altar or not? Same question we said before. The Gemara has no resolution to this question and concludes Teiko. Therefore, don't ask any questions. It doesn't make a difference. There ain't no answer for now. You have to wait for Mashiach. You want to do anything? We want Mashiach now. We'll get the answer. No questions. Gemara says no questions. There's no questions anymore. Teiko. All right. The final Mishnah's chapter discusses the sanctification of substances placed in sacred vessels. Okay, we know a general rule that there were all these kalim in the base of Mikdash. They're sacred vessels, right? And they would take the blood, put it in this vessel, all right? When it goes into the vessel, all right, it's a sacred vessel. Whatever you put in that vessel becomes kaddish. It becomes holy right away. It becomes sanctified for the Beis Hamikdash. All right, do not return to go whatever.
No return to sender.
No return to sender. That's it. It's done. Klei halach mekachim es halach. All right, lach means liquids. What about vessels that are designated for liquids? Okay, they have to pour the blood in certain vessels. They put the wine in certain vessels. They put the oil in certain vessels. All right, what are these fluids? Vessels designated for fluids. The moment the fluid gets in there, that fluid becomes kaddish, means sanctified for Beis Hamikdash. By the way, those vessels don't have bottoms to it. I mean, they don't have flat bottoms. I believe they're all like ice cream cones, right? Because the Kohen has to hold them the whole time. He's not allowed to put them down, right? So, hence the for those things.
That's where they came.
Okay. What?
That's where the ice cream cone.
Ice cream cones came from the base of
Oh,
Naples.
ice cream cones. What are the things? Aren't those called sprinkles when you put them on top of an ice cream cone?
Oh.
Yeah, but we're finished. It was takeover as far as sprinkling with this. Okay, one new thing. Vessels designated for fluids, sanctify the fluids. Umidas yavesh mekachis is a yavesh. And measures designated for solids sanctify solids. Solids would be like flour.
It's salads as in
Solids. Don't make fun of my accent. You're going to be in trouble. All right. Solids. SOLIDS. All right. So solids being something like
this is a solid.
okay. So solids is something like solas, like semolina, flour, okay? Mincha.
Limbs.
Yeah.
Solids.
What?
Limbs.
No. Here we're talking about solids like grains, things like that. Okay. Things that go into you don't put the
Vessels.
go into vessels, right? So it's interesting that we called the liquid vessels kalim, say clay alach, but we call the ones that hold the other stuff midas yavesh, all right? Measuring cups. And the reason is there weren't that many vessels. There are a lot of vessels for different sizes for the wines and the oils and the waters and all those liquid stuff. But when it came to dry, there's only like a couple things that would be put in, and it had to be a certain measurement. All right. So you either had the kind of half pint and the pint, let's say. I think the Gemara will go into it. Otherwise, I learned it in Rashi. All right. But that's why the dry stuff is called midos, which are measuring cups, and the ones that contain the liquids are called kalim, which is vessels. Ein kli alach mekadeshes es hayavesh. So rule number one, that vessel that is normally contains liquids, even though it automatically sanctifies the liquids put in it, all right, it does not sanctify dry stuff like semolina, let's say, solas that goes into it. Below yavish mekadosh es halach, and the contrary as well. The measuring cup cannot sanctify if you go ahead and pour blood or wine into it or oil, whatever. Kliya kodesh shenikbo. Next question. What about a sacred vessel that was punctured? All right. Lahabdil, think about your socks. All right. How many times you get a hole in your socks? When I was a kid, I got a hole in my socks. My mother, she rest in peace, she used to sit there and she'd re-sew up that hole.
Everybody.
All right. Nowadays, everyone ditches the sock.
What are you talking about?
Yes.
Everyone's so-
They just ditch
No,
the
they
stuff.
just wear it with the
Or
whole.
they wear it with no. But excuse me, but
But
ein anias b'makam ashiras. But in a place of richness, all right, like the base of Mikdash, we don't show anything of poorness. So maybe elsewhere, everyone wears socks with holes in it. Things like that, they go in the basement. Now, they don't wear socks in base of Mikdash, but if the vessels have a hole, ditch the vessel. That's it. Nix the vessel. But let's see, because they're going to talk about this. When do you do when? Im osin bahem me'ein melachton shehayu osin behein shleimin. Okay, if they can still be used for a semblance of the function that they had served when whole, mikachin, they sanctify. So that's saying that, let's see what it says in English. As long as they can perform a semblance of the original function, they can be considered as vessels as before and retain the power of sanctify, to sanctify. When they can no longer perform a semblance of their original function, they cease to be considered vessels and cannot sanctify. So it says, in the vessel designated for liquids, if the hole, that was according to Rambam, if the hole is big enough to cause a significant leak, the vessel is no longer deemed fit to perform semblance of its original origin function. In a measure designated for solids, the hole would have to be so large that the solid liquids cannot be held in the vessel. All right, but what if it's a tiny little hole and it's right up on top? Kind of reminds me of a kashrus of a shofar. What if the shofar has a little hole at the end? Not but where you blow in, I believe the shofar is still kosher. So here they're filling up the vessel, and let's say it's only supposed to go to a certain point, whatever that thing is, for what it's being used for, but the hole is way up higher. For that type of situation where to exist, you don't have to nix the vessel. It is still, shouldn't say nix because we're going to mention knives. You don't 88, 86. You don't 80, that's the term, right? You don't 86 the vessel. You don't say, put this in no, whatever. No, they don't.
86, it's the page in the Gemara.
Yeah, we passed it. We're on 88, right? The Gemara.
You're talking about what liquid leaking out of the vessel a little bit.
We're talking about that if it would leak out vessel, then it's an invalid vessel.
You're comparing it to a chauffeur.
In my mind, not in the Gemara. I was just trying to give an example. I'm just trying to give an example. It's not what the Gemara says, so let's not get into it. Just imagine a vessel that's kosher and have that. For analogy, I said, imagine a shofar where the hole is at the end, because we know a hole near the mouth invalidates it. So say that's still kosher shofar. It was just my analogy. So here we're saying just that there are vessels that can have a little hole that won't cause leakage. That's all. Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel says, Lo shanu el amidas. They taught this only in regard to vessels, to measures designed for fluids. Aval mizrakas mekachin, but basins designed for fluids sanctify solid fluids as well. Shnema, all right, they're going to explain this exactly. Because it says Shnei Meleim Solas, that's from the Pasuk. For it is stated one silver bowl, one silver basin, both of them filled with fine wine mixed with oil for a mincha offering. So the verse implies that the bowl and basin sanctified for the flour for use as a mincha offering. The other one refers to the offering brought by the Nasi of each tribe in honor of dedication of the Mishkan. 7 special measures for liquid were used in the temple, blah, 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 etc. Menachas. I mean, you got to look, these vessels were consecrated solely for the purpose. All right. I don't want to get into that. We'll never get moving. Well,
Is this a third category of vessels, or
no, this is just, they're bringing sentences from the Torah that seem to say that.
because in the Mishnah we said that we couldn't like interuse the vessels, like they wouldn't consecrate the opposite.
Right.
But now here it says it seems like
But
you could use one for both.
okay, so that would be a question. You're right. I'm not sure if it's one for both. But it's a good that you're right. That's the question. All right. Solid figures cannot be measured in liquid measures. These vessels cannot sanctify solids. However, the ordinary bowls and basins, although designed primarily for containing liquids, were equally fit to hold solids. These vessels therefore sanctified even solids that were placed in them. So according to Rashi, I guess it is a third category, or it's redefining what it said in the Mishnah that that those for liquid can, under certain circumstances, if they're made for a certain sacrifice, to hold also this situation where there was supposed to be a mixture of dry and liquid, then it's okay. So let's just call it third category for now. Amalei Rav, as you suggested. Amalei Rav Acha Midiftei Ravina. So what did he say? Mincha lachahi. The mincha offering mentioned in the verse was moist, for it is described as having been mixed with oil. So mincha is normally dry. All right. How does Shmuel derive from here that the vessels designated for liquids sanctify even dry solids? So that's the question we're dealing with. Amalei Ravina replies, Lo nitzricha ela yave sheba. It's necessary only regarding the dry particles within the mincha offering. All right?
Oil, flour, oil mix.
Yeah. It's impossible for flour and oil, which comprise the mincha offering, to be mixed perfectly. There were unquestionably pockets of dry flour that remained untouched by the oil. Yeah, it's like sometimes when you take these protein mixes and you put them in and you mix it up, you still, what was that? Yeah, the clump of dry that
Yeah.
was in there. Yeah, the basin sanctified the entire offering, including the packets of dry flour. Clearly, basins designed for liquids have the capacity to sanctify even dry solids.
Right.
All right, Ibai Sema, or if you prefer, let's say something else. It's like, you don't like that answer? All right, toss that answer. I'll give you another one. All right. Mincha legabe dam ki yavesh dummy. Dummy. I'm not calling you a dummy. All right. A mincha offering, although it's moist, is considered dry when compared to blood. All right.
Wow.
Yet it was always sanctified by the silver basin, which normally is used for blood. Since the basin had the capacity to sanctify the dense mixture of flour and oil, it must also have the capacity to sanctify even an absolute solid. Since that's what we're answering now. The Gemara presents a number of rulings concerning the capacity of sacred vessels to sanctify. Amar Shmuel, Shmuel said, Klei sharos emekachin elechlamin. God bless you. Vessels of the sacred sacrament. God bless you. Sacred, do it one more time and you really get a blessing. Vessels of the sacred, you get gesund the third time. Come on, one more time. Vessels of sacred blah, blah, blah. Can you say this 3 times fast? Vessels of sacred sacrifice. Vessels of sacred service sanctified. Okay. One more time. Vessels of sacred service sanctified only when they are whole. A mekachin elam. They sanctify only when they are full. A mekachin elamit mitochan. They sanctify only from their interior. Now, what does that mean from their interior? The Gemara is going to explain this. A slightly different version of Shmuel's statement. For Amar Layin, some say it's as follows. A mekachin elishleimin umeleim umibifnim. They sanctify only those that are whole, full, and inside the courtyard, not inside the bowl. I love that. It's in the tennis game. It's inside the court. According to this interpretation, requiring that they be inside is a repetition of Mishnah's ruler that they sanctify only in the holy. However, understand the term umipnim as meaning from their interior and as teaching that in one carved out a stand on the underside of the vessel and placed something in it, it's not sanctified. The Gemara goes on to explain the difference between the two versions of Shmuel's statement. One carved out a stand. I guess the stand because those kalim are the ice cream cones. Otherwise, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm not a Kohen, and let the Kohanim worry about this when Beis Hamikdash comes. Maybe I may know quickly. The Gemara asks, "My Beinah, what's the difference between these two versions?" The Gemara answers, "Ika Beinah bereitsui midas." There's a difference between them regarding the overbrim of measures, the slight amount that rests above the vessel's rim. Now, according to the verse version, the vessel sanctifies only that's within the interior airspace, whereas according to the latter version, it sanctifies all that it holds, even that which is above its rim. Okay, I have a problem with
Like when
this.
you're
No,
doing
let me say something. I have a problem with this. What were you going to say?
Like when you do kiddush,
Yeah, what?
it make sure it gets the red. Sometimes like you describe it.
Okay, now here's my question. When they say when it comes to the rim, all right, the top of a liquid in a glass or cup or whatever it is called in scientific terms the meniscus. That's just the term, right? And the meniscus can either be convex like this, all right, or like it's like a cup like, or concave. It goes over. Now, if you pour water in a cup, if you pour anything to the rim, all right, it's supposed to be concave, like this.
But it's not.
Wait,
That makes it
all right, we're going to figure out why. It's also supposed to be concave. Even oil is concave. The only things that are convex, that, excuse me, yes, that go up above is something that has a stronger I forget scientific term, like pulling power of the liquids more than the sticking power of the glass.
Wow.
All right. And that's something like, do that, try this at home, mercury. If you were to pour mercury in, it'll definitely curve this way, which is professor.
I make grape juice. I squeeze grapes.
Yeah.
It's like a mushy. It goes like
Okay, so that's my question. Only molten metals and mercury are convex. Everything else is concave. So why is it that when we typically pour stuff like Hello just asked, they do appear
Kiddush.
convex? Yes.
so
Why? But it's not supposed to.
it doesn't believe you.
No. So it must have to do with the way the cup is made on top. That it sucks less. Maybe that's why they curl the tops of most cups. I'm not sure, but this you can. The reason I'm asking this, I want you to do this experiment at home. I want you to take 2 Kiddush cups, one that has no lip, all right, the ones that they're happy to kasher you for Pesach, and one that has a lip where there's machlokas, and many people won't want to kasher that. You know, the lip. All right, take 2 cups. I want you to pour water in it. I want you to pour oil in it. All right, not mercury. Do not try that part at home, and don't try molten metals. And the third thing, Kiddush, wine.
Yeah, Kiddush wine.
And I want you to come back to me, please, and tell me, come back to me, assuming I don't sleep late and I'm not share. I'll hear you because I listen to the share, all right? And tell me what you find, if we all find the same thing. Because I think, to my recollection, as you say, that the wine pours that way. But I'm wondering if it's because the way these cups are made and these vessels are made. Because by science, it's not supposed to be that way. Okay, let's go
Science
weiter.
is wrong all the time.
Yeah, well, this might be an example.
Close.
No, we're not talking about overflows.
That's all I meant.
We're not talking, if you pour too much, it'll overflow, but that's not the question. The question is when it's stopped, what?
So when you got brim coffee, you fill it to the rim.
Does it go concave or convex or concave? That's good. Let's go more in the Gemara. I got 4 minutes left. The Gemara cites a brisa which incorporates all the stipulations, both versions. Vasnisa Tanda was torn the brisa. Emekachin ela shleimim milayim imtachim bifnim. All right, that's what we just said. Amaravasi, Amarav Yochanan, Rav Seder, and Rav Necha. Loshanu ela shein das olosif. They taught this only regarding case where one does not intend to add to the amount of the vessel. This sounds like Kiddush. If one intends to add to the amount of the vessel, so it will eventually contain the full measure, Rishon Kodesh. Each successive amount that is put in the vessel is sanctified immediately. The Gemara cites, I guess that means even if it had a tiny hole, it was already sanctified. Maybe. The Gemara cites a brayso in support of this ruling. Tanyana mehachid, there's also been 2 in the brayso. Malayim, the verse states, both of them filled with fine flour. Malayim and shleimim. It can only mean whole. The vessels contained must mean it's got to be a whole vessel. You can't do less than the full measure. Bisman shein das olosif, and one does not intend to add to amount. When less than the full measure, when one doesn't intend to add. If one intends to add to the amount in the vessel until it's full, Rishon Kosh, each successive amount that is put in the vessel is sanctified. The Mishnah said, and Kli Halach Mekadesh originally said a liquid vessel doesn't Mekadesh solids. The Gemara qualifies this ruling. Rav V'iteme, Rav Asi, was he say, and Mekachin Likarev. These vessels do not sacrifice substance for which they are not designated for offering upon the altar of a Mekachin Paso, but they sanctify it for invalidation. Well, that's interesting. So it can't make it kosher, but it can make those substances invalid. All right. It's 6:28. We lane today. Let's just stop here. So let's go to, we'll stop at Amarav Vitemi Rav Asi. I'm sorry I didn't get even to, hardly anywhere, but to be continued tomorrow. Does the rabbi come back tomorrow or I have to continue?
I think.
Good. Otherwise, I prepared 88. If he's not coming back.
Don't tell him, because now he's not gonna come back.
Combining
Okay.
liquids in the vessel.
One second. One second.
Maybe he'll be a special guest.